Welcome back to the Intelligent Builder podcast, sponsored by Plutus Agents. Today's guest is a little bit different from my usual lineup of contractors and operators, but her story is directly relevant to the audience. So I recently featured Lori Dennis on the podcast, one of the top interior designers in Los Angeles, and today I've got her daughter, Elle. She's a high school senior and co-founder of Dimensions, an AI-powered estimating and measurement startup. She's building alongside her dad, which also happened to be one of the best luxury home builders in Southern California. They're really trying to solve one of the primary frustrating parts of running a contracting business. So that's the time between showing up on site and getting a quote out the door. She's also made one of the bolder decisions that a high schooler can make right now, which is to skip college entirely and go all in on building something real. So we're going to talk about both. Elle, it's great to have you on.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, no, of course. So before we get into, what you're building, I want to set the scene a little bit because, you grew up around your mom's design world and your dad's construction world. So what was that like growing up? Did any of that maybe rub off on you in a way in terms of your interests?
I definitely think that my mom had a much bigger effect on my interest than my dad, since my mom worked from home. So I was always really seeing what she was working on, kind of immersed in her workspace. She would always take me to all of her design events, and she would always actually ask me for my opinion on a lot of her work. So I think that all really got me interested in design and having things look nice and being aesthetically pleasing. However, my dad didn't rub off on me so much until I got a bit older, since he works at an office outside of our house. So until I got older and started really going and seeing what his job sites were like, I didn't have so much of an idea of what it was that he did from a young age.
Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. So then did once you got a little bit older, were you spending more time on job sites or were you just kind of, learning what that world was like from afar for a while?
I wasn't so much on job sites. I would say as a preteen, I would go to a lot of his job sites during COVID, since there wasn't too much to do and he wanted me to get out of the house. So that's when I sort of learned more about the construction world. And then as I got older, as a teenager, I started overhearing conversations and he started asking for my opinion on certain things. And that's kind of when I got fully immersed into, not fully, but immersed into the construction world and just how that looks and how that structure is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, all in all, you kind of grew up around the industry, right? The interior design, a little bit of construction too. And then you made the decision that, most people your age aren't really making, right? I feel like it's not the norm. Maybe it's starting to be, but you decided not to go to college. You probably have a lot of people asking you like what your plans are. And I assume that conversation has come up hundreds of times. So how do you explain that to them when they ask you that?
Right. So, of course, being a senior in high school, as you said, the first question most people ask is, where are you going to college? And telling them I'm not going, they get this confused look on their face, and then I have to go through my whole spiel. But what does it look like? So, not going to college, it really looks from my road the same as going to college in a way, because I'm still taking classes, I'm still learning, and I'm building, like if I had a part-time internship as a junior or senior in college. The only difference is that I'm building this roadmap on my own, and I'm able to take whatever classes I choose, and I'm able to go wherever I want. I'm able to learn it whenever I want. So from this point, it's not too much different, I would say, than the typical learning and growing and trying to get a job. It's just I'm teaching myself and I'm building myself, and it's a really hands-on experience. So I take classes with different universities. I'm learning at Saylor University. I've taken classes through Stanford. I'm learning with Andrew. I'm not sure to pronounce his last name, but NG, if you've heard of him. And that's kind of my coursework, I would say. And then, of course, Dimensions is my job, as one could put it.
Okay, yeah, so that's super cool because you're still continuously learning. It's just a pretty big difference on the experience side, which I think will be much more helpful later down the line as well because you really skip ahead of most operators starting, say, like me after college. I had a business in college, but I really started this business after college. So you're like, 4 years ahead, which is pretty cool. But was there a specific moment or maybe a realization where you realized, okay, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to do my own thing instead?
It's interesting because ever since I can remember, my mom's answer for me was always, "You're not going to college." Most people, their dream is, I'm going to Harvard in third grade, but mine, I would tell my peers, I'm not going to college, and I'd get all these sideways looks because when I was little, that really wasn't even in the cards. Now it's a bit more, people don't know, people think it's an interesting idea, but when I was younger, it was just, you go to college, that's what you do. As a senior, everyone's applying to college. Everyone's saying, where are you going? Where are you applying? Are you doing early admission decision? And it's weird being the only person constantly saying, I'm not going anywhere, I'm doing my own thing. So in my first semester of senior year, I was actually considering it. I was considering applying to some places and maybe even going. And as I kind of transferred into my second semester, I saw that so many graduates are not getting hired anymore, especially in the field that I'm in. I was just thinking, by the time that I graduate, what's the rate going to be? And if I can do it myself, why would I go? So it kind of solidified that idea in my mind that I didn't want to go. But there was definitely a point when I was kind of a little shaky. But in the end, I was just truthful to myself. And I think I can always go back if I need to. It's not going anywhere. But right now, at this point in time, it the moment to strike is now.
Absolutely. And I love your perspective on that too, because it's so true. Like, let's say hypothetically, right, this startup fails. Your fallback is you're totally okay. And if you want to go to college, you can go to college. So there's essentially no downside, especially to getting the experience. And you mentioned that a lot of college graduates aren't getting jobs now. And your mom, Lori, she sent me something a couple weeks ago, I think right before she introduced me to you, that there are more high school students that are employed than college graduates, which is completely insane. But I kind of want to jump to dimensions now because I think it's pretty cool. What's like the simplest version of the problem you're trying to solve in the construction industry?
Simplest version of the problem is every day these contractors have to go to a job site and take measurements and come back to the office and get a quote for those measurements. And this takes 2 to 3 days before they can get back to their client. So what we're trying to do, what we are doing is we're going to the field, we're scanning, we're doing a walkthrough. And by the end of that walkthrough, we already have your quote and your estimate. It makes the whole process go so much faster. We are accelerating everything. We're accelerating how quickly you can get paid because your client can sign on the spot. And we're also accelerating how fast we can start working and you can start getting things done. This also lessens the chance for your client to find someone else and then your contractor wasted their whole day there. And it's just generally to speed up and simplify the process of measuring.
And that's awesome. Because I mean, for anyone listening who actually runs a contracting business, the delay between site visit and the quote is super real. And just from me speaking to others on this podcast and outside of this podcast in the industry, it's one of the biggest pain points that I've seen. I'm curious just how you kind of came across this problem. Was it more through just learning from your dad, or was it, yeah, that's really the question is honestly, where did you realize this was such a core pain point that you need to attempt to solve it?
So as I got closer to graduation, I realized if I didn't want to go to college, I needed to do something. So I decided what's an industry that obviously I don't have a lot of experience in anything. So it's an industry that my parents have a lot of experience in and that I can learn from that and build in that. And so I started asking my dad about construction. We started figuring out what's something where tech and construction can combine and make something realistic but useful. And we decided that this is a process that takes such a long time. And it's something that's not too difficult, I would say, to automate, but it's something that construction workers and people in that field have avoided automating because they're not used to the tech. It's not something that they usually have in their everyday lives, big tech. So I decided here's a field that's huge and there's so many possibilities and automation is just lacking so much. And there's so much room for trial and error because people are really sleeping on this field, on getting automation into blue collar businesses. So that's kind of how I came about that, just talking with my dad, brainstorming, trying to find a problem to solve.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially this specific solution you're aiming to solve, because this is something that actually helped other contractors with too, but on a lesser scale than what you're planning to do. So what I've built is just custom systems based on their actual estimating workflow. But it sounds like you have some scanning involved and things like that. So how does dimensions actually really work? What does it look like in practice?
So we obviously have the main website, the sign up page, which then takes you to our app, our website app. So basically, we have these little scanner looking things, QR code type things. This is just for the start before we can get enough data to get accurate scannings every time without these. But you put them around the window or on the window, and then based on the size, our scanner is able to determine the rest of the length of the window and the sides around it. So that's basically how it works. And then in our app, you can also put in the data yourself, which is really great if something's wrong or maybe you just want to be more precise. So you can have different projects and each one has the different measurements that you've either scanned or that you put in yourself. And you can say what kind of windows you want, what kind of material you're using, what kind of environment this is for, and then it just stores everything there. So it's really great.
Okay, that's super cool. So is it kind of primarily focused on Windows for now, and then you kind of plan to expand from there?
Yeah, so my dad, more specifically, owns a company for windows and doors. So we wanted to find a really niche, specific topic to work on and then expand from there after we've made a success. Because doing something so broad as in the whole construction industry right to start is big task to take on. So we thought starting from something a bit smaller, something a bit more manageable would work better.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a solid approach to take because you can learn from there and then really build out what needs to be built for different maybe doors and things like that. So you're more focused on the windows and door side right now. And then you also mentioned in our last conversation that you want to kind of tell them which products, like which window products to have. How's that going to work? Are you going to advertise maybe specific brands that you partner with, or just which windows would work best in that specific space based on the scanner? How does that work?
So right now, my dad works closest with Pella Windows. So probably we'll try to recommend that most to our clients. However, as we expand to other companies, windows and doors, construction, just other general companies, we'll probably do it based on the most fitting product. So what's the best price you can get it for, the best quality, the things that fit your needs. Because as I said, you can put in all sorts of different material, what kind of doors you want, what kind of material you're using, just all of that. Based on that, our goal is to get the most accurate recommendations for you. But yeah, for our business, it'll probably be focused on the ones that we partner with, since that's what we have available to us.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I want to talk more about. I guess so. That's on the roadmap, right? I want to talk more about how you're actually building it because I believe you mentioned you're working more on the front end side of things, like the front end development, and you use Claude Code, right?
Yeah,
So how did you get into coding?
all the way from the starter for dimensions.
Yeah, so I guess from the start, but then you've learned enough to where you can now apply it to something like dimensions. So how do you fill that gap from not knowing anything to now applying your coding skills to building dimensions?
So I've been coding or doing things with code since I was 6 or 7. I started taking classes.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, my whole life has been pretty much filled with these different Python and Java and things like that. And then as I got into middle school, I started taking it more seriously. I started taking intensive boot camps and classes, and that's when I really started to excel in coding. And I started as a young age just doing websites. So I would just make all kinds of websites just for fun. And as I got into high school, I started learning about backend developing. And then that's when all these LLMs came out. And it kind of just got rid of the need to know everything about code. Because as long as you were familiar with it and you understood it, it can do weeks of work in a couple of hours. I was initially a little bit nervous to start with Claude Code, and I have some friends who I've also been trying to get to go to Claude Code. Then my uncle, he was talking to me about it. He was telling me, you can't keep doing this copy paste into GPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever it is that you're using. You have to go with the times. And I said, that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to college to do that. So I guess I have to follow my own words. And then I installed Claude Code and it's been awesome. Claude Code is just incredible. But that's how I got into code and Claude Code specifically. And then as for dimensions, it's been a lot of my personal experience. So a lot of knowing about Vercel or Supabase or just things like that. And then using Claude Code to connect it and do all of the hard, intensive debugging and writing the code and fixing all that.
Awesome. Are you This is just me being super curious about your usage of Claude Code. Do you connect it with, MCPs so it can do a lot of the verification and testing for you on the front end side?
Yeah, I do. I'm careful about, of course, giving it a lot of information. So that's just the main worries. My uncle's really big into security. He's always telling me you gotta watch out with what you're telling this, what you're telling that. However, at this point, yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. No, that makes sense to be super careful with it, with like secrets and stuff. And I know Vercel is pretty good at that. Actually, Vercel just got hacked, but
Oh,
yeah, no, they got hacked like I think last week. But if you are deployed on Vercel, which I think you just mentioned Vercel, they would have let you know if you got hacked. So you're
yeah,
probably fine if you don't know. But no, that's awesome that you're using Cloud Code and it's been super helpful so far. And then I'm curious on the testing side of things, but like on the real life testing side of things, because your dad has run the business and then it's almost like a proving grounds for the tool that you're currently using. So
yeah.
what's that dynamic like? Is he giving feedback on what doesn't work? And are you kind of just like figuring it out by maybe watching or being on site or anything like that?
So a big part of that is once I graduate, I'll be able to spend a lot more time on site and actually testing. Right now with school, of course, it's a little tricky having to go there, come back, have enough time for all that. So I've been mostly just fixing bugs that he talks about, trying to take care of any changes that he wants while he's been really doing most of the primary testing. However, once I graduate and I have all this time on my hands, I'll be the one doing all that work and testing and scanning and going to job sites with him and seeing how it works and getting some firsthand experience.
Yeah, so you got a lot on your plate now because you're still in school. You got what is it like? Not that much time left, by like a month and a half or something like that. But
Yeah.
how are you splitting your time now? Like what does your week actually look like between school and then working on dimensions?
It's funny because now that I'm not going to college and I have a month left of school, I literally graduate May 29th. So I'm sort of detached from school. During school, I do a lot of dimensions work, which might not be what people want to hear, but I've kind of definitely not prioritized school recently and really put dimensions and all of my work first. However, I think with not going to college, that doesn't really matter so much at this point. So during class, I'll usually try to fix a lot of bugs or like make changes on my computer, just easy stuff that I can do with Claude Code. And then once I get home, I do more research, I watch videos, I see what new tech we can incorporate. I try to figure out any big issues that we've been having. I see with my dad what changes have been made on his end, what needs to be fixed on his end, what needs to be merged, anything like that. So it's a lot of just debugging and like general coding during the day, and then on the weekends, we usually have bigger debriefs and we'll talk about with my family, my uncle, my dad, my mom, we'll talk about any big changes that we want to make, what we're planning to do for that week. So it's very not repetitive or not sorry, I don't know how to put this. Rocky. It's really rocky. It's really not a dependable system that I have right now. It's really much just whenever I get the time, I'm working on it, especially since school goes later some days, goes earlier some days. So it's just a complicated system of if I have a free hour, I'm working on dimensions.
Okay, yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That makes a lot of sense too. I mean, I guess working on it in school, probably not the best idea, but you're almost done. So you've done the majority of what you need to do already, which is great. But so you graduate soon in about a month. What does summer look like for you? Once you can really be full time, what are some of the changes that you'll be, I guess, incorporating into your life when you're really just all in on dimensions?
So during summer, I've kind of thought about this out, thinking about how am I going to approach this? How am I going to get my learning in? I want to take about 3 to 4 classes, I would say, just to further my knowledge on everything that's going on, everything with AI. I want to also take one kind of elective, I guess you could put it, and just have a general knowledge about anything I'm interested in, physics, things like that, because I do think it's important to have a good education. I just don't think college for me is the way to get that education. So I'd like to spend a lot of time learning, reading books. I'm reading the a personal MBA right now. More in the afternoon, once my dad's actually on the job sites and things like that, I'd like to go and work firsthand with him, get some experience on what does it look like more in real time and how is our dimension scanner working with that. And then when I'll come home, I'll do changes, I'll make as much work as needs to be done that day. But it's a pretty flexible schedule, obviously, because now I'll have so much time on my hands. It'll just be a lot of learning, implementing, going, learning, implementing, going. So that's going to be my summer schedule. And then as I said, right now we're in Mexico, so my parents love to travel and they want me to go with them. They don't like me to be home by myself, so I'll probably be traveling with them and doing all this work remotely too, which is so great about working for yourself and learning on your own is that you can learn from anywhere and you can work from anywhere and make all these changes and do all of this just in a beautiful place.
Yeah, that's incredible. The travel part is truly amazing. And you can even work using Claude Code on your phone now. So you
Yeah.
can truly be literally anywhere. But so what are you hoping to learn when you can really be on the site real time? What are you looking to get from that that you think will help in building out dimensions into what you want it to be?
So first of all, I'd like to just go and freshen up my knowledge of how they actually do the process right now, just to get firsthand experience on how long it takes, how much effort it takes, how you have to go back and then get all the numbers and all the stuff and put it together. So I'd like to just freshen up my memory on that because I haven't really seen that since I was a little bit younger. And then, of course, get firsthand experience with dimensions in the real world. So see how accurate is our scanner right now, how long it takes, is it really working? If we don't have connection maybe somewhere so good, will it still work? So I really want to focus on the actual process of using Dimensions.bot and the process right now that employees and construction workers have to do, just so I can bridge the gap and make it work the way it needs to work.
Yeah, just a quick idea. I spoke with I don't know if you've heard of the software BuilderComs. Probably yeah, you have? Okay, well, either way.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah, either way, so it's a construction software. I had the founder on the podcast. Like, he was one of the earliest episodes, but he rolled out his software for free for I think it was like a year just to get a bunch of feedback on the system itself. And then I think he recently, end of last year, rolled out, the paid programs and stuff. And now it's working great because he has such a strong foundation of, feedback loops from people actually using the software. Just an idea, maybe when you get it fully built out. But, kind of I guess speaking on that longer term vision, you also mentioned humanoid robots eventually
Yes.
doing actual installation work, which is actually something Lori mentioned on our podcast as well. So that's super cool. So how serious is that part of the roadmap, I guess, versus maybe just a horizon you're watching?
So it is our long-term goal. However, of course, we're not building humanoids, so we're not really sure how long that's going to take. However, construction workers in small businesses specifically are, it's a low paid job. It doesn't take much education. It's kind of unreliable. It's a seasonal kind of thing. So these workers might mess up, they might not show up, they might choose not to do something, and it's just really unreliable, I would say. So with humanoids, they're always there. You can pay them pennies for the hour instead of $20 an hour, and they don't get hurt. The worst that's going to happen is your humanoid gets crushed, and then, okay, you have to pay for another one, but you don't have to worry about getting sued, insurance, anything like that. Nobody's really getting hurt in these dangerous situations. So it is, once humanoids come out, we're going to get that. We're going to start seeing how does it work? How can we use it effectively? And then also a great thing about humanoids is that you teach one of them something and your whole fleet learns, which is totally just mind-boggling to me. It's really, really fascinating. So that cuts out so much time from training and having to make these little mistakes that beginning construction workers will make. So we're really serious about these humanoids. We really want to get them as a part of our business. It's just depends when do they come out and what tech and what testing do we have to do to make them as accurate and reliable as possible that we can roll them out.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome to see eventually in the future. I know your mom was mentioning she wants to be first to have those humanoid robots and actually installing things. Super cool. I wonder what that timeline is like. You never really know now because of how fast things are moving. It's like
Yeah.
every week something crazy comes out with AI. But no, that's really cool that it's part of the longer term vision. I wanted to kind of before we close out, just looking for your advice, I guess, from the little experience that you kind of do have in the real world. But a lot of people listening, they probably run a construction business and they've got kids that are around your age too. So what would you tell a younger person, around your age who wants to build something real but doesn't have a clear idea yet? If they decide against the college route.
I would say start out with anything. Anything. Think about a product that you want, something that you are on your computer and you said, "Oh, I wish I have this, I don't know, mic to type or whatever it is." And just build it. Just try to build it. With Claude Code, with everything now, possibilities are really endless. You can build anything with barely any knowledge. And the trick is to just get started on anything. And also, don't be scared of failure because you're going to fail. Like, no matter what, from this age with little experience, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. I already built one thing and it failed, and now I'm on to the next thing. It's really important to just be adaptive, be able to adapt, and not be scared of any of the risks. Because if you're skipping college like I am, you have 4 years to figure it out that these other people are in school doing work. And then once they graduate, you'll be so ahead of them and they'll be right where you started. So just build anything. Think of the smallest idea you possibly can, whatever you want, and just try to build it. And if it doesn't work, just move on to the next thing. That's it.
Incredible. You have a truly great perspective on things, especially at such a young age. It's awesome. I
Thank
I do
you.
wanted to ask you on the flip side as well. So based on what you're seeing, building and with your parents being in construction and things like that, what do you wish that more contractors understood about what they can do with AI tools now? Because from what you're building, it sounds like the gap is pretty wide, and it's something I've seen myself as well. So yeah, what do you wish that contractors knew was possible?
I mean, honestly, this might sound a little corny, but anything's possible with AI, I think, from a base level. And I just wish that they weren't so, I guess, afraid to change, because I think that's the biggest thing is that they're so used to this current system that they have and they don't want to put in maybe the time, maybe it's effort, or maybe it's just fear of once there's something better, you have to do the work to make that actually work together. So I wish they just could see when they're having an issue that it could be solved with AI. And if they just get over that initial fear of having to change and having to learn a new system, that everything will be so much more efficient, everything will be so much quicker, everything will work more effectively, everything will be more reliable. It's just really getting over that jump from everything you're doing it yourself to AI is helping you with stuff. So I think if they just knew, if they're having an issue, just think AI could help me solve this. And I think that's a really good motivator because nobody likes to be stuck with problems.
Yeah, no, you're so right. It's a lot of contractors, especially on the older side, they're like, we've been doing this for 30 years and it works, so why would I change it? Like, for example, it takes you 6 hours to estimate a window size and get back to a client or something like that when you can do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's incredible what you're saying, you can really do anything now, you just kinda have to take the jump. Back to what you said about fear, if it doesn't work, oh well, you still have a system that does work. Maybe try something else next time.
Yeah,
But no,
exactly.
Al, this conversation was really great. Truly, it was amazing. I do appreciate you being open about, the college decision and where Dimensions is at right now, some of the roadmap things you have going on in the future. And just your perspective is super, I guess, inspiring from the age you're at versus I mean, I'm a similar age. Nobody really thinks that way or like us, I guess, in starting something rather than taking a traditional route of a career. But where should people find you, connect with you, maybe ask questions about dimensions if they have any? Are you I believe X you're most active on?
Yeah, I'm most active on X, so I'll definitely answer to that. I also have a LinkedIn, but I haven't been checking it very often, which probably isn't good. But yeah, if anyone wants to find me or connect with me, it's Elle Yerushalmi, ELLEYERUSHALMI on X, and also that on LinkedIn.
I will link that below so people can find you. But for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to The Intelligent Builder. If you found this episode valuable, make sure to share with another contractor or operator in your circle, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Al.
Thank you so much.